welcome. It's another of those amazing episodes that we call BrassMonkeez. So, hello, welcome.
Hello.
You've stuck with us this long. Well done to you. BrassMonkeez there in the background, feeling very vocal tonight, aren't you?
Yes, there's been a lot going on, and I think I'm itching to get my big monkey teeth into the week's goings on.
Listener, let me tell you, BrassMonkeez is seriously wound up this week, but then it's not a surprise. By the way, I'm BrassMonkeez1. If you're wondering who we are, it's a very good question. We'll talk about it a bit later on. Right now, though, let's get straight into the meat of things and find out what we're going to be talking about on this week's BrassMonkeez. So let's get straight into things then. This week, of course, has seen the debacle, if that's the word that we use to describe what's happened with A-level results and GCSE results. Finally, we have seen a U-turn from the government, which means that those of you who were sitting your exams and expecting to get A star, and A, but actually ended up with B, E, E, all is not lost. It looks like you are actually going to get the results that you should have got in the first place. But this just is the latest, isn't it, Monkey 2, in a list, a litany. I love that word, litany.
Litany.
A litany of absolute and complete f***ups by this government.
Yep, exactly. They seem to be the experts, and I seem to remember seeing, I mean, I know this is over there with the even bigger clown, but the T-shirt that I saw for sale on one of the markets down in Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco was a cartoon of Donald Trump wearing a clown's nose and wig, and underneath elect a clown, expect a circus. And I think the same thing has held very true with our happy shopper version over here, Boris Johnson. Sorry, Alexander DeFeffel Boris Johnson. Insert the rest of his names here. I can't remember or care to remember what they all are.
I have just been to see Her Majesty the Queen. All this and more we can do now and only now at this extraordinary UK assets orbiting in space with all the long-term forgotten people and the left-behind town.
It's perfectly true that I have had some drugs.
Yeah, it's just one big car crash, isn't it? It's just U-turn after U-turn. Oh, yes, it'll be all right. As long as we keep doing something, eventually something will stick. But what they forget about, if it's not people's livelihoods, it's their actual lives they're playing with here, and they have not got a fucking clue.
They don't care that we know that they're lying and making up half of the crap that we hear every week.
They got away with it at the election, didn't they? They got a landslide at an election that I don't think even in their wildest dreams they were expecting to get. And so they now think they're invincible. And all the time you've got that nasty Machiavellian little toe rag running the show from behind the scenes at Downing Street, pulling the strings. And ultimately...
Dum.
Yeah, that's the one. They're all answering to him. And what is he? What is his background? What is his training? I honestly don't think he has the nous, and none of them in the cabinet have the nous. You haven't got any of the heavy hitters that you used to have, people who were actually qualified to make decisions. I mean, Gavin Williamson is the one in the firing line at the minute, particularly, was all for supporting Theresa May, but yet the minute he knows that Boris Johnson's going to be the one that's going to get him in power, he throws his weight behind him. What a nasty, duplicitous little piece of work he is as well, perfectly in keeping with the times that we find ourselves in. And the fact that he's presiding over this clusterfuck, if you want to use the phrase, and I do, and I did, we can bleep that out, it comes as no surprise to me. He's just the latest one. There'll be another one. Priti Patel will pop up and fuck something up, and then another one will pop up, and it's just like the shooting ducks thing. It's which one's going to come up with the most ridiculous thing they can do next.
BrassMonkeez listeners, you'll know from previous episodes of this show that I've commented about Monkey 2's language and how, he's mad when he starts effing and jeffing. I'll tell you what, in the space of the first 5 minutes of this week's episode, we've heard more effing and jeffing from Monkey 2 than I have in the last year.
Well, you've used it as well. We've had one from you, so I thought,
true.
Fair play, It's 1-1. Well, it's more than 4. It's about 4-1 from my end. But
basically,
no,
we're really mad, aren't we? We're really mad.
It's just you just feel so powerless against this torrent of crap, and we're just caught in the middle here, and there's just seemingly nothing anyone can. We're sleepwalking through one disaster to another and just letting them get on with it. And part of the reason we started this podcast was to try and start bringing this to people's attention that it's a bit shit.
We still haven't got, as they quoted, a world-beating test and trace operation. In fact, what you may not know is they're quietly restructuring the whole thing, and instead of it being a standalone centralized operation, it's now being shared out amongst the regions, amongst local authorities.
Yep.
But you don't hear that. And the other thing is, and I found this particularly interesting, is one of the areas that caused the government a little bit of discomfort, shall we say, during the whole issue about statistics and the daily briefings, was the difference between what the government were reporting and what Public Health England were reporting. PHE is now being disbanded. It's being effectively swallowed up by, you can't make this up, a kind of extended central test and trace operation. So Dido Harding, who leads up this operation, this test and trace, who incidentally was the chief exec
of
TalkTalk when they managed to have
lose all the data.
Yes, they were hacked spectacularly, but she still managed to keep a job. But of course, she's one of the cronies. She's one of Boris's circle. They're all mateys, pals together. It's all scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I tell you what, they do more back scratching than you and I do, monkey.
Exactly, yes, and that always puts my spidey sense on full alert when I know that's the case, because I do a lot of scratching, as I'm sure you do. It's a hobby more than anything else for us monkeys.
You tend to scratch a little bit lower down than I do, you know.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
You lower the tone, don't you, monkey too?
Oh, in every single way.
But I'll tell you one of the other things, of course, that's happened over the last week is the fact that France and I think a number of other countries were basically put on the quarantine list. So everybody decided to clear off abroad and have a holiday, which I don't know. It's your choice if you want to go abroad at the moment. But for me, I'm just sticking where I am at the moment because this is all a little bit too up in the air. It's not settled. Nobody knows what's happening from one week to the next. And this is the absolute classic example. Thousands, tens of thousands of people trying to get back home before the quarantine rules came in, which I believe were 4 a.m. last Saturday. This is going to carry on going. I mean, the latest news is that Greece and Croatia have gone onto the quarantine list, which means if you're planning your holiday there, kick back and enjoy it because you ain't going to be going anywhere soon.
Well, you're going to be having another 14 days worth of holiday once you get home, whether you like it or not, because you're not going to be going down to the shops. You're not going to be meeting up with friends. You're going to be stuck indoors like it was when this all kicked off at the outset. You're absolutely right. These are names that are sort of popping up and are starting to rise to the top. Your name's not down, you are coming in, but you're going home for 14 days. I think you can basically read into that. We went as far as Essex. That felt quite exotic after sort of 4 months of staring at the same four walls here at Monkey 2 Towers.
Apologies if you're from Essex, but seriously, Monkey 2, when you're saying that Essex is exotic, we know we've...
Well, we did keep away from the flesh pots of Southend and Frinton and the like. We went to quite an interesting part. I won't go into too much detail, but it wasn't what you would normally expect when you thought Essex. I think, all joking aside, Essex gets a bit of a bad rap, and it was absolutely wonderful. Lovely part of the world.
I am just going to, at this point, just apologise to the whole of Essex, because actually, I lived in Southend for a time, and I had a mate who lived on Canvey, down Canvey Island. It was
Canvey?
Great.
Oh, Canvey.
We used to go down there, hang out in the old Ford Escort and down at
White
Canvey.
one, was it?
No, it was blue, mate. Blue. But anyway.
Blue, mate. Sorted.
It was sorted. It was sweet. Anyway, enough of that. What about the USA? Can you go to the USA at the moment?
I believe the USA is on the naughty list at the minute. And if you come and go from the USA, there's a 14-day quarantine, and I imagine it's the same at the other end. They're pretty hot on who goes in and out of that country these days anyway, as anyone who lives south of them will attest. I think they're being pretty careful, and I know they are not on this list of places where you do not need to self-isolate when you come back from. So for once, we're not just trying to kiss up to the USA, we're actually being a bit more careful.
I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
Oh, God, yeah.
The The reality is, throughout this whole period of time, many people have been furloughed, they've been sat at home. Let's actually, before I go any further, let's remember there are lots of people who've been sat at home who couldn't work but haven't been furloughed, i.e. have had no money. And let me just say, that is a bloody disgrace. It really is, because this is, as we keep being told, the most overused word of 2020, unprecedented. Furloughed or non-furloughed. No doubt you've been trying to fill your time. You've probably watched every box set going. You've probably discovered radio stations and podcasts that have amused and delighted you. Hopefully this one is doing exactly that. But you may also have actually turned your energy and your attention to some creative output. Have you learnt something new that you didn't know that you could do? Have you learnt an instrument? Have you picked up a power tool? Have you ended up in A&E as a result of picking up a power tool? Have you turned something old and battered into something bright and blue and new? Or is it just a case of you've let the days roll by and now you're wondering what the hell you've done with 2020? This is, as we've said before, it's the year that keeps on giving. It just gives all the wrong stuff. But amongst all of this, there are some positives. You've learnt how to do podcasting.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I've dabbled with in the past. And I think, well, we both have, and we've both got a bit of history in more traditional broadcasting. But when it comes to the sort of intricacies of getting your own home-created content online somehow in some form, it's a very different world out there. And we've both had quite a steep learning curve. And I'm pleased to say that we've managed to get 4 of them to stick onto something somehow, haven't we? So, pulling the tin cans and the bit of string tight, we seem to have managed to make something work. And
our shit is out there and people are listening. So thank you very much for listening to this shit.
And may God have mercy on your souls. No, we've learned a lot, and it's been really entertaining. It's been very frustrating in equal measure, as anyone who's tried to watch the video version of this on YouTube will attest.
Actually, at that point we should say, shouldn't we? If you've ordinarily been catching our episodes via YouTube, you'll know that there is an episode missing at the moment, which is episode 4 of BrassMonkeez on YouTube. We're going to hopefully, BrassMonkeez 2, hopefully I'm not making too much work for you, but I think we will be able to get something up there, but it's probably going to be a little bit different to the first 3 episodes and going to be the same going forward. But the thing is, this is about you and us. We just want to get out there and connect with you. We don't care how you listen to us. Whether you find us on a podcast, whether you find us as a remote link from somewhere on YouTube, it doesn't matter. As long as you are with us, and most importantly, that you actually connect with us. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. The details on how to do that are on your screen as we speak.
Find us online. We're BrassMonkeez, MONKEEZ or Z if you're American. Search for us on Google at BrassMonkeez. We'll turn up eventually like a bad penny.
We want to hear your brickbats and bouquets. If you think something we've done is absolutely naff, then tell us. And maybe we can make it better. If you like something we're doing, then tell us as well. And then our egos can expand and our heads can get even bigger. And if you look at the average primate's head, it's already quite big. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing. So there will be the missing episode 4 will appear in some form or other on YouTube at some point.
It will be. It'll probably be a simplified version. I think we may have overreached ourselves a little bit with the content. I mean, this is something that, going forward, and that's a phrase I hate using, but in the future, as we used to say in the old days, we hope to have something a bit more workable. But for the time being, we'll have something there for you to collect the set, to complete your collection.
And we'll send you a BrassMonkeez back.
Car stickers. Do you remember those?
I remember those.
Yeah,
anyway.
Bumper stickers to you in the Americas.
Right, I'm just going to write down for next week's episode. What is it you've learnt to do over this whole period? This whole weird 2020? What is it you've discovered about yourself that you didn't know you could do? Love to hear from you. It's about time we gave out the Contact BrassMonkeez information, BrassMonkeez 2. Hit it!
You can get in touch with us at BrassMonkeez. That's MONKEEZ or Z. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. Just hunt us down. We're on most of the podcast apps. We're on YouTube sometimes. Type that in. Type in BrassMonkeez on Google and we will pop up somehow.
That's it. Download us wherever you find your usual regular podcast.
You are fake news.
Is it that time again?
It's that time again.
Oh, God, I'm going to make a cup of tea. Talk amongst yourselves.
You can't go just yet, Monkey 2, because
Go on, then.
sad news from Trump Towers. A moment of respect and dignity as we acknowledge the loss of Donald Trump's younger brother. So you can imagine, obviously, this has been a very, very difficult week for POTUS, for the Donald. All of us, when we've lost our nearest and dearest, we have to go through a period of grieving, of reflecting on the value of that life and what that life has meant to us. Donald has indeed this week reflected on the loss of his brother. I'd like to invite Monkey 2 to share with you some of the learned and considered reflections that the Donald came out with on the loss of his brother this week.
Yes, in this dark period of reflection for Donald Trump, to be fair to him, he announced the sad death of his brother at the age of 71 or 72. I'm afraid I didn't look that carefully. Closely followed up a couple of hours later by the fact that he announced his brother was his biggest fan and was so angry with China.
No, I didn't say that at all. I don't think you understood what was said.
He said his sibling was so upset about the COVID-19 pandemic and that China did not stop what the president called the plague.
I love China.
Not my words, the words of POTUS. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the man in charge.
I own a big chunk of the Bank of America building in 1290 Avenue of the Americas that I got from China in a war. I beat China all the time.
So yeah, let's just remember that Donald John Trump, the 45th current president of the United States, will be in office in the White House until January of next year, even though Joe Biden could potentially be the new president in November. So what's he going to do sat in the White House between November and January? Work out reasons, no doubt, why he should remain there. There's a huge issue, isn't there, about the postal votes in the state. Quite obvious. He's already planting the seeds that if they, because of COVID, have a higher rate of votes that are made via the postal system, that he's just going to cry foul and say, look, you know, it's all a fix and I need to stay here. And therefore, I'm bolting the doors, I'm switching on the electric fences, and you're not coming in.
I will be the greatest president for many, 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 many years to come.
God, the horror. I think at that point there will be probably the closest they've ever been to civil war since the mid-1800s.
It's a scary idea, isn't it? Americans do have a unique relationship with their arms, don't they? And
oh yes,
I don't know.
Got to be careful here, haven't we? We do have a listenership on the other side of the pond, and we respect your right to bear arms. It's in your constitution, but come on, fair's fair, guys. It's a little bit long in the tooth now, isn't it? If you're going to try and stop us coming over there and taking over your country, I think that battle has long since been fought, and we lost it, and we gave up on that one. So you know, there's no danger of the Queen marching in there wearing a red tunic, carrying a flintlock, and trying to attack the lawn of the White House and come in via the West Wing. No, it's not going to happen. I think you can safely say you probably don't need quite so many guns and the right to bear them.
So this week, we're going to focus on a couple of toys as we do each week. First one that I want to look at is Big Trak.
Big Trak. That was brilliant.
Now, I didn't realise, but you actually are on much closer terms with Big Trak than I was. I always wanted one, but never had one, whereas you, I believe, did have access to one.
I had access to one, but I didn't own one. One of our neighbours, his dad was a salesman, a toy salesman for a long time.
What a job when you're a kid. My dad's a toy salesman.
Yeah, exactly. And it was wonderful. We used to get brilliant toys. Yes, he used to have all sorts of things, and Big Trak was one of them. And he even had the optional extra, which was the tipper truck, which you could program in one of the 16 steps that Big Trak's memory could remember, to go and sort of drive up somewhere and then tip up and dump whatever you wanted to put in the back, right where it probably wasn't wanted or needed, as long as you were on the same floor.
That was called the transporter. Was it?
Okay.
I'm going to give you some fantastic stats now. So
please do.
It was born in 1979. Okay, in 1979 it would have cost you 20 quid, which actually for something so advanced was pretty good value.
What would that be worth now, do you think? About 100 quid? Would that be equivalent?
Probably about that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And of course, the silicon chip was what made this work, because as you rightly said, you could program it. Did you say 16 separate program functions or something?
16's a number that I remembered, and I have to confess, I did look it up on Wikipedia, and yes, it's 16 steps. 16 memory things, and it was Texas Instruments memory in its silicon chip.
Sorry, just going off on an aside, do you remember when we had calculators before they were LCD and they were LED display?
With the red numbers.
Exactly, and you'd write 8008 and turn it upside down and it would say...
Boobs!
Yeah, something like that, wasn't it? I mean,
boobless. I think you could write boobless, and there was...
The things we did. We were so avant-garde, weren't we?
Didn't know we were born.
Anyway, the Big Trak Transporter, which was the extra trailer that you could get for it, that was another 15 quid, by the way. So we're starting to get expensive.
Oh, it's building up now.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a big thing, and it reminds me of another type device that was similar. Do you remember Armatron?
Armatron?
No, the robot arm. That again.
Yes.
It was programmable as well.
Was it?
Yes.
I just thought it was remote control, just had levers, and you could pretend that you were building Fiat Stradas.
I may be wrong, and we'll check, because we'll maybe look at Armatron next week.
We'll look it up, yeah.
But yeah, so Big Trak, I really always wanted one, never got one.
Great fun.
And the reason I never got one was because all my Christmas presents and birthday present money was spent on either a Thomas Salter microbiology set, microscope, or a Thomas Salter chemistry set. Now we're talking.
So, given that history, how come you haven't come up with a vaccine, a viable, workable vaccine to get us out of the crap we're in at the minute?
I think it's probably down to the fact that the chemicals, although they looked very impressive in all their little test tubes in the set, were actually pretty non-functional.
Potassium permanganate and magnesium, wasn't it?
Yeah, which makes your potassium permanganate, which makes everything purple.
That's it.
Copper sulfate, which made a browny yellowy kind of solution.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you did get a bit of. You got a couple of strips of magnesium that you could burn under the Bunsen burner. If you had a big enough Thomas Salter set, you got a Bunsen burner.
Or a Bic lighter for those who are slightly harder up. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even gas; it was methylated spirits.
Oh, real blimey! How did you get a nice big blue fiery flame on that then? Did it really have to be stoked up, or?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it is, but you could do something. You could pour one of the contents of the test tubes onto. I would spend hours trying to do something, usually failing miserably. It does remind me, actually. Do you remember indoor fireworks?
Oh, God, they were rubbish.
Weren't they?
Absolute rubbish.
There's a smouldering heap of some black slag on the kitchen table.
Well, it ended up looking like what was the result of the Chernobyl meltdown, crossed with a turd, as I remember. Just like some foul-looking, long, snaking unpleasantness that your mother would go, where the hell's that come from? And so, well, you bought these because you didn't want us out in the back garden scaring the cat. Indoor fireworks. Surely that should set alarm bells ringing on a danger level and on a disappointment level. I think the two would cross over very well in the middle with a Venn diagram, and that little bit in the middle would just say, don't bother.
So enough of the toys. What about the shows? The TV shows that were entertaining us back in the distant past. If you're an adolescent of a certain age in the 70s, early 80s, then you'll no doubt have known the existence of Charlie's Angels and Barsley John Barsley.
Oh, yes. I can't say it really ever appealed to me. I mean, on a certain level, I was probably starting to sort of get the hormones that would have made that sort of thing interesting to me on a level that it was probably played at. But I don't think it ever really appealed. I think I was probably a little bit too young for Charlie's Angels on every level, if you get what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
That was Aaron Spelling, who did
Spelling.
all the others.
That's it,
did the ones that Glenn Larson didn't do.
So really, between the two of them, they just mopped it all up, didn't they?
Basically, yeah, he had it all written. I mean, he made things like Charlie's Angels, Fantasy Island, The Love Boat. He Dynasty, or Dynasty if you're in America. And obviously the famous one in which his daughter starred was Beverly Hills 90210.
Our next programme, it's a British show, but it was absolutely a part of growing up in Great Britain in the, well, any period really from the late 60s. Doctor Who, the butt of many a joke when you were at primary school. Knock, knock, who's there? Doctor Who.
That's
I
right.
just told you. Ha, 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 ha. But there's one particular doctor I want to look at here because a brilliant thespian, a proper actor. And even to this day, he is still larger than life. Tom Baker!
Good old Tom. Lunatic, an absolute lunatic, but a lovable one nonetheless. I think the word eccentric sums him up. He's legendary, isn't he, in the voiceover booths of Great Britain, where he can be, shall we say, a touch difficult to work with if he's not in the mood.
He looks as mad as a box of frogs. He is a man who has more presence than Boris Johnson and Donald Trump put together.
Yeah, well, let's get him in. I'm sure he'd do it for the money. He's, I'm sure he doesn't need the money anymore, but he's on his third marriage. And
Tom Baker for Prime Minister!
Well, they've had him doing all sorts of things as well, haven't they? I mean, he was the speaking clock for a while, which was wonderful. And there's a, I mean, I probably shouldn't mention it on here, but there's a famous story of how he used to like to talk during...
God, I didn't know that.
Yeah. We'll skirt round that one, but there's a famous within the industry in which we find ourselves and we are sort of part of. There's a famous recording of him basically losing the plot with a very poorly written and directed voiceover session. I think it's something to do with a kitchen company. Mm-hmm. It's just another one of these sort of, let's get Tom to do it. He's wonderful. He's got gravitas. And he just basically rips the producer and whoever else happens to be on the other end.
This bollocks?
Basically, that's pretty much what it amounts to. Tact and diplomacy go out of the window. If we can find a link to it, and I think I know where I can find a link to it, I will post it. It's well worth your time. Not safe for work, probably, and not safe for minors, but highly amusing.
So, time to address correspondence that BrassMonkeez head office has received. Yes, so Steve was talking about hate crime and the fact that, literally the moment you open your mouth these days and say anything, particularly if it's aimed at any kind of minority of whatever size that may be, you basically can't get away with anything because you will be held to account.
Oh, you'll be pilloried.
You'll be pilloried, you will be held in the stocks and pummeled and pelted with rotten tomatoes and God knows what else. Not able to have an opinion on anything. Well, that's not how we work here at BrassMonkeez. We have an opinion and we are happy to say it. And I don't think anything that we've said so far should be seen as being particularly offensive to anybody unless you're the President of the United States or a member of Her Majesty's government. In which case,
you deserve everything you're getting.
Indeed you do. The reality is, he says, I'm thinking of becoming bi-curious. And I was intrigued. Steve, what do you mean? And he's explained. He says, well, first of all, Black Irish, because I'm half Irish. And he knows this via a DNA test, and also the fact he loves Guinness. He says, I'm disabled. He tells us that's because he had a necrotizing fasciitis. Fasciitis. You know that one, do you?
I do. That was the skin eating thing. It was back in the mid-90s. Right. It was quite a scary thing, I remember.
He now explains he's now got half a bottom cheek. So sorry, dear. Steve, I don't mean to laugh, mate, but how's your ass? God, we're quality here, aren't we?
We found our level at last.
And he also says, I'm part African, and I've scientific evidence that my ancestors travelled from this region. So there we go. So what do we do with Steve then? Well, Steve, as far as I can see, you can slag everybody off, mate, with absolutely no fear.
Yes, exactly. You're probably the safest bet we have. If we tell you a few things, could you say them for us?
Steve, thank you very much for sharing that. If you have any other thoughts or gripes, then please do get in touch. As always, the way to get in touch with us here at BrassMonkeez is...
Yep, get in contact. We're BrassMonkeez, at BrassMonkeez on Twitter. We're everywhere. If you just search for BrassMonkeez, 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 or Z if you're the other side of the pond. We'll come up. We're on iTunes, we're on YouTube, we're everywhere. Give us a shout. We'd love to hear from you.
Get in touch, let us know what you think. Give us some feedback, ideas that you'd like us to cover, anything really. Even if you just want to say hello. A few of you have been getting in touch and basically having a go at us. Yes, having a go, no less, because...
How dare you?
Because apparently you don't like the fact that we refer to ourselves as Monkey 1 and Monkey 2. Let's give you a bit of background. When we started the Brass Monkey episodes, the idea was that we just wanted to do something that couldn't be tied down to us as individuals. Because as Monkey 2's already said, you know, we've been around the block a bit. We've got some miles underneath our paws. Our nashes are no longer completely 100% ours. And,
Nor our marbles.
Nor our marbles indeed, but enough of the nether regions. But anyway, we decided we just wanted to keep ourselves maybe off the radar, so to speak. Hence, we very originally came up with Monkey 1 and Monkey 2. Not the most, to be honest, they're crap, aren't they? Yeah. So, Monkey 2, we have a discussion we need to have, don't we, about how much of ourselves we give unto thee.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they always say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and the names, as they say, have been changed to protect the innocent. And we're innocent, aren't we? We're very innocent.
I don't know about you, mate. But...
Well, comparatively speaking, perhaps. But I always took the view that you're not going to gain anything by knowing who I really am. And to be honest, if you knew what you were doing, you could probably find out fairly easily. And there's a few people who listen to this who probably do know who we are. In fact, I know they do. But for the time being, I think I'm quite happy to draw a veil over my true identity in case... certain people listening in find out where the stuff's hidden. and the bodies.
Yes. Okay.
Joe.
I'm gonna say thanks particularly to James on this one for giving us some very constructive feedback on this. Also, the legendary AD. Thank you very much for your feedback as well. It's really, really valued and appreciated, and keep it coming. I'm inclined to say, Monkey 2, that we
go for slightly more inventive pseudonyms.
Shall we do it? Do you remember that show, Tonight, Matthew, I'm Going to Be,
yes.
Yeah. So let's do it that way on the next episode of BrassMonkeez and see how it goes. What do you reckon?
Okay, yeah, we'll give that a go. See what
think
inventive title we can give ourselves.
That will be a bit of fun, I think. Let's have a quick look at what's coming up next week on BrassMonkeez. Yes, well, you'll be delighted to know that, as always, we'll be calling the government to account, as has to be done, finding out the latest on what's going on there. I want to revisit strange websites that you found. I don't know if this is an area that we really want to delve into, but hey, let's give it a go and see where it takes us down that proverbial rabbit hole.
The world's our oyster.
In nostalgia, I'm not decided on what TV programs to do yet. I'm going to see what suggestions come in from our lovely, loyal listeners.
Yeah, do send them in.
Sounding like a typical local radio DJ there.
Quite literally, send them into the studio and we'll see, go through our little bulging post bag and see what pops out, mate, all right?
I don't know about the other toy we're going to feature, but we have talked about the legendary show Knight Rider. And I'm going to talk next week on the next episode about the Matsushiro Knight Rider radio-controlled car.
Oh, did you have one of those?
No, I didn't.
Are we going to find something that you did own that wasn't a chemistry set or a young terrorist training manual?
Hey, I introduced you to Vertibird in the last episode.
Oh, Vertibird. Well, yes, or delivery system, as we know it. Yes, of course. Yes, Vertibird was a very good one, actually. Yes, that was quite obscure, and it's not one that I was aware of.
There is an element of going through these toys, looking at the ones that I wish I had and I hadn't. So.
Well, don't have eBay up at the time you're looking, because I've just been looking on there, and you can get a nice Big Trak that works for 25 quid on eBay.
I expect a demonstration next week, Monkey 2.
I cannot be justifying spending money on things like that at the minute, I can assure you.
So just before we go, here again is how to get in touch with us. It's great that you are joining us on these little journeys through the, shall we say, the backwaters of our brains. Some of this is just unreal, some of it is surreal, and some of it is, quite frankly, too real. On that bombshell, we're going to disappear. He's going up his tree. I'm going down my tree to go and find some nuts. Have a great one, and we'll catch you on the other side soon.